Everyone, thanks for joining. John here, senior software engineer with 10 years of experience. And the current stream is sort of a recreational, fun side project thing. Aria's Tale is a game that is a project of the Latterly community. So Latterly is an open source educational website that will help you land your first or next programming role. You can sign up for free. You can join the Discord for free. Standard checklist, walk you through how to learn to code. So it's a coding community, right? And so it's really serious. It's really serious. And we're learning and we're doing all this hard work. Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to have fun. And in programming world, we can reuse our productive energies related to practicing development and build a game. We can build a game and kind of have our cake and eat it too. So Aria's Tale is this community project under Latterly, ariastale.com. And it's basically like Dungeons and Dragons with ChatGPT. That's basically what it is. So yeah, I've also heard it called popcorn writing. Is that a real term? Let me see. Popcorn writing. Except that you're not writing, you're just like talking. So maybe that's a better way to explain it. It's like collaborative storytelling with ChatGPT in the loop. Okay, and so that's how you end up with these stories like, you know, the Aria arc, this narrative. Where did it come from? They're basically recorded sessions of collaborative storytelling gameplay and then cleaned up, basically, is how this story evolves. And so there's a narrative world, there's a universe, there's a gallery, which apparently takes a really long time to load now. What? Oh, 500. Oh, I think the database is down because it hasn't been in use. So I think there's like a paused database. Whatever, I'll get that up and running later. There's like images too, it's not just text. Video is forthcoming. So it's basically playing with all these generative AI tools. So there's a bunch of like generative AI video tools that are coming out. Really excited about that. And one of the other things that this game universe can manifest into all these interesting, different sort of just recreational ways. One is like a video game, a browser-based video game. And so kind of the normal way to do this in web dev world would be a tool called Phaser. You can also do Unity, but Unity has like weird license things. And it's in its own language, whatever. You can deal with Unity in a few languages, but latterly emphasizing web development, JavaScript, TypeScript, and then also Python after that. So Phaser would be a cool way to do this with TypeScript. And then the kind of like weirder way, which is of course the way that I'm doing it because it's just recreational, is PyScript. So PyScript is Python in the browser. And other people may disagree with this. My characterization of PyScript is that it's not quite production ready. It's a bit unstable. And so I don't know that I would encourage you to use this at your company. I would just stick with JavaScript or TypeScript. But for side projects, I think it's super fun. And it's an exciting area in the open source world that's rapidly developing. So that's another reason that I'm attracted to dealing with it, is that I'm actually able to contribute back. When I talk about it being unstable, I'm able to accelerate it to maturity. And then maybe in the near future, we can use it in like a enterprise scaled commercial setting. And it would be cool for me to be a part of that. So PyScript, and then a related tool called Pyodide, which basically depends on PyScript. And you can use it in like Cloudflare workers, which is a really interesting technical space. It's like its own special runtime that has cool performance advantages and more. Thanks for the likes. So we may or may not end up using Pyodide. The idea is like use it if you can get it to work. And then if you can't get it to work, you can fall back to PyScript, which is a higher level of abstraction. Okay, so this is all of the background of the GitHub issue in front of us. So pygame is the Python-based game framework. So PyScript is not a framework. Pygame could be used in the browser for a browser-based game if PyScript supports it. Did that make sense? So that's the idea here, is that we could implement a browser-based video game on this website, but using Python, which is kind of weird and fun. It's not the normal thing to do. The normal thing to do, you grab a canvas, you throw a phaser in there. So we're going to grab a canvas and try to throw pygame in there. And this is part of a series. This is not the first stream that I've tried this. And we'll see if we can make some progress. So here's the repository where I'm doing this, Aria TCG Python. At some point in time, if I stop making progress, I may switch over to phaser. That would not be the Python one. There will be a different one for JavaScript or TypeScript. But I've made progress in every stream, so I haven't really hit the wall yet. So let's see if we can make some more progress. Okay, that's all the background. And now I need to pull up VS Code. So here I have cloned down that repository, Aria's Tail TCG Python, which is the Python game module that we would eventually then place into Aria's Tail RPG, which is the website. Does that make sense? Thank you so much for the likes, Amir Dust and Blockchain Hashira. Thank you very much. Okay. So the way this works is I have a build.py, and build.py will take a template HTML file. This template has a script tag, text JavaScript. It loads Pyodide. And then we have a source dist. And so there's two templates. There's a PyScript template, which uses PyScript and it doesn't use Pyodide. And then there is a Pyodide template. So again, the idea is use Pyodide if it works. If it doesn't work, fall back to PyScript. Okay. Okay, and why is there a source and a dist? Well, basically, we grab the script tag, Python script placeholder, at Python code. We're going to grab this script type Pyodide. So it's not JavaScript. It's a script type Pyodide. And then this build file will throw in the Python game. So this is literally a Python game file. You can just straight up run it in Python if you want. And we haven't gotten it to work so far, but hopefully it will inject a game into the canvas. So let's see if we can make some progress there. Blockchain Ashira says, hey bro, good stuff. I'm a blockchain developer, by the way. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And this is also called Aria's Tail TCG Python as opposed to RPG Python. So we are going for a TCG implementation here. I think either one would be fine. It would be cool to do an RPG as well, whatever. My mental model is that a TCG could be lighter lift. There's whatever, that could be totally wrong. But if you think about a battle screen, in an RPG, a character might have many moves. In a TCG, you pretty much just play a card. So a character has one move, maybe two, if it has a special effect or whatever. So the idea is to simplify the battle format to make computer decision-making easier, basically. Because you can basically just shuffle a deck and have it play cards, and it will do reasonably well, and you wouldn't want to have an RPG character that just plays random moves. Okay. Canvas setting, am I on this branch? Let's go over to the pull requests. Oh, there's nothing open. I guess I'm pushing to main. Yeah, that sounds like something I would do. Canvas setting, we're pushing to main, so am I on main? Awesome. So what to do now? So now we're in the right code area, and we will check on this issue. And thanks to these people who are developing Pyodide and Pygame and Pygame support in Pyodide, which is an ongoing issue. And Ryan King in particular got back to me with some feedback. And so we'll see if this helps. So he points out that canvas is set to none initially. I don't think that matters. The DOM was not even populating, not just the canvas. The whole DOM was locked in an infinite loop, basically. So I'll remove that, but I don't think it matters. Run Python blocks the main thread. This is the bit that he dropped that's going to be really helpful. So let's try this. Sinclair, thank you for the follow. If you're on TikTok, by the way, you can check out my bio and check out YouTube over there. See the full screen. But over 1,300 likes on TikTok. Thanks already. All right, so just to remain coachable, and whenever I report back, tell this guy, hey, I did what you recommended. We can go ahead and drop the canvas display none. I don't think it matters, but whatever. Here is our source control. We have some open changes. That's cool. No problem. More importantly, async main def. Run Python blocks the main thread. So if there's an infinite loop, the browser will freeze. So you need to run Python async and use async functions. Okay. Is my main an async main? So here's my main.py. I don't even have an async main. Async main. Okay. Okay. I don't really like Pyodide being here, but I guess it exists. It's like magically existing. Did you finish your book?
Yeah.
Well, that didn't take long at all.
I'm gonna go get in the bath and start it.
Okay, have fun. Run Python blocks the main thread, and that will be located not here. That will be in my HTML. So my HTML is saying run Python. Yep, there it is. So we are going to continue trying to use Pyodide based on this instruction. So based on this instruction, we will continue to use Pyodide. Instead, you need to use run Python async and use async functions. Okay, so I'm coming over here. I'm switching out run Python to run Python async. Nana Love, thank you for the follow. Now I have the async main def while running await main. While running doesn't change. Love that. Okay, so I don't actually have to alter my loop. Awesome. I was worried that I would have to alter my loop logic, but it seems like I don't. Await allowed only within async function. So this is mainly going to be a linter concern. For now, let's try ignoring the linter. And I'll be perfectly happy to report back to the guys if it's like, hey, this works, but the linter's mad. It's like the least of my, it's like, that's a wonderful problem to have, right? Okay, so now I'm going to poetry run Python build.py. Poetry run didn't work. Why did poetry run not work? Let me deactivate. Oh, permission denied deactivate. Were we gonna have to sudo today? Am I forgetting the poetry command? All right, let me just Python build. That seems to work. So now I go over here to dist. I'll check my PyScript And what I want to do is make sure that now I'm using await. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. Pygame.quit. Where did this guy come from? There it is. So it's taking the main function content and it's just dropping the await main. Maybe that's fine. Await main lives in this form, the index.html, async def main. What about the index PyScript? Async def main is not here. So it seems that index PyScript just didn't run. So let me look back at my build code. PyScript. Yeah, this is actually not what I want. This is actually not what I want. I want to glob on the index so that I get all the indexes. Are you using Thawny? No, I don't know what Thawny is. Okay, so we can adjust manually. Not what I'd prefer to do. Did I get it backwards? Does Pyodide depend on PyScript or PyScript depends on Pyodide? Not sure. So I'll copy all of this code into here manually. Let's see if that works. Let's see. All right, and from here, it's pretty straightforward. You just drag into a browser. So here I'll copy the path. Open up this tab, Command TV. Here we'll do the version without PyScript. And let's see what they both do. So I'll bring open the inspector. The main thing I'm looking for is, does the DOM render at all? So here, the use of top-level await, async for, and async with has been removed, says pyexec. Working on a Raspberry Pi, ? I'm having a blast with Pico. Cool. I'm not doing any of that stuff. KB, welcome. Is this what cybersecurity looks like? You know what? It's not. But I think Red Hats will have a heyday with PyScript. Get into it. So we execute PyScript tags. Yeah, this really seems that PyScript is not even intended. So I think that's a red herring. So here I'll delete PyScript and we'll stick with Pyodide, which is what's actually under version control and what's built by the build. Samu, welcome. So here's Pyodide. And I'm closing this tab and I'm refreshing this tab. Look, you see the DOM doesn't even render. So it's like still blocking, even though we do this like Python async thing. Async. Run Python async is still blocking. What if I comment this and I rebuild? Whoa. Okay, because this is the output. What if I comment the source and then I rebuild? We'll stop, right click, empty cache and hard reload. Still doesn't want to load. Let's close the page and open it again. Okay. Now we see DOM rendered. Now we see DOM rendered, right? Loading pygame, loaded pygame CE. So Pyodide in the browser is able to load the library. This is a really cool thing. We're actually loading pygame. We're just having trouble using it. And here, pyodide.run python async is still blocking, is what we're learning, right? Let me try one more time. Perhaps it was a UI caching issue. So I'll try one more time. Script processor node is deprecated. Use audio worklet node instead. Audio context was not allowed to start. That's a bummer. I'm a data scientist comfortable with Python. What's the best resource to learn JavaScript and React? The best resource will be a high prestige coding bootcamp, but I'm imagining you don't want to shell out 10 grand. Codecademy is decent. What is your purpose? Are you a data? So if you're a data scientist, why do you care about learning JavaScript? Is it just for funsies? If it's for funsies, check out Codecademy. If you're trying to actually pivot into web development, then yeah, maybe you need to go through a bootcamp. Juan, thank you for the follow. Okay, what are we learning here? The DOM is rendered. Here I'm closing the tab, Command T, V, enter. Lonray says, I recently joined a company that requires me to build data tools with JavaScript. That is wild, gang. That's borderline offensive. Yeah, I'm tempted to advise you to find a new company. Like, seriously. Because learning JavaScript and learning data science in JavaScript are two very different problems. And the fact of the matter is there is no, to my knowledge, competent educational facility with JavaScript for data science purposes today. So like the equivalent of stats model in JavaScript, these are really niche libraries that are poorly used and poorly maintained in web development world. And so I don't know that you're going to be able to find an educational provider that tells you how to use these obscure tools well. They're just not used. So it looks like we continue to see an infinite loop. FPV Zaid says, I mean, if it's just front end, he could do a Python backend, question mark. That would be an excellent approach. That would be an excellent approach. Still, this is full stack web development. And so if a data scientist is asking, how do I do full stack web development? The thorough answer with high risk aversion, high success rate, the thorough answer is you go to a web development bootcamp. The only problem there is it's like 10 grand. And it's really weird that you're asking your data scientist to implement a full stack application. Maybe it's a small company wearing multiple hats. Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna stick with the bootcamp thing. I mean, if you want to learn a big skill and you have no proper background, get educated properly. Get educated properly. So go to coursereport.com, browse schools, all schools, sort them by most reviewed, not most rated. Sort them by most reviewed. I don't know what your country of residence is, Lonray, but you're going to want to find a bootcamp with a minimum of 400 reviews and a score of 4.25 or better. And then you're going to want to confirm that they have a full stack development curriculum that includes React. So if you're in Sydney or London, Lowagon is fantastic. New Camp is weird. You might have success with them. They're kind of weird though. BrainStation is pretty cool. Springboard, I'm a big fan of. I recommend Springboard generally these days. The reason that I recommend them is because they have a job placement guarantee. If you're already employed, that's going to be less important to you. So maybe this is not the best choice for you, but it is one that I generally recommend. I'm in the US. Okay, got it. Yeah, so then I don't think Lewagon will be available to you. What is the advantage of using recursive function instead of if loops? Well, one would be that you can't do DFS with if loops. So there are just certain patterns that you cannot implement without recursion. Yeah, like try to write the Pythagorean theorem with if loops, man. There's just things that you can't do. There's just things that you can't do with if loops. So this seems to be hitting a wall. Okay, so now let's think about how are we going to write this up and report it back to Ryan and company. Oh, did I forget to do await async IO sleep? Okay, this could be my problem. I don't think I'm using async IO. So maybe that's my problem. All right, before I bug them and do a write-up, let's try one more time. Clock tick will not work. Clock tick will not work. And I'm still using clock tick, yeah. Okay, so they've told me that this won't work. So it's not useful for me to report back presently. I need to try this out too. Okay, so let's hit up ChatGPT. Now is when we hit up ChatGPT. We're going to use retrieval, browser-based retrieval for this. So I'm going to say, role, you are an expert web developer with expertise in Python game development. Is using ChatGPT wrong for code? No, it is not. Rick, thank you for the follow. Situation. We are attempting to implement pygame in the browser using Pyodide, an experimental new technology. Let me not explain what Pyodide is. It may already know. But I should specify the version of Pyodide because the training cutoff will have it thinking of an old version of Pyodide. 2.6. V026 plus. Using Pyodide version 026 plus. Okay. We are attempting to implement pygame in the browser using Pyodide version 026 plus. Task. Oh, and then we previously encountered a bug and reported it on the Pyodide GitHub issues. Area. Reported it to the Pyodide GitHub issue area. The maintainers reached out with advice about fixing this bug with async logic. Kelly J, do you think it is bad for beginners? No, there's objective data that generative AI and AI-based code assistants disproportionately benefit beginners. They disproportionately benefit juniors, accelerating onboarding and career advancement. So I'm a huge, massive fan of them. Don't fear the Reaper, use it. The maintainers reached out with advice about fixing with, whoa, that's what I get for having split attention. The maintainers reached out with advice about fixing the bug using async logic. Task: review the code that I will provide and assist implementing, let's say, assist a refactor into an async pattern. I will show you the current state of the code for now. Just say ready to continue after you read it. Current state of the Python code. Bright click, fixing this bug with accidental typo. Yeah. One of the things that's nice about large language models is they are moderately robust to typos, unlike keyword-based search systems. Yes, that is the result that I wanted. GPT-4 indicating that it is properly following the instructions is a green flag. Okay. Okay, so we have this main.py. What else do I want it to review? I want it to review the GitHub issue. And then we can have it looking at the index as well. Why not? Why not? The remaining 2 items for your review are the HTML code on which the pygame is hosted, and the GitHub issue conversation. Here is the HTML file. And here is the GitHub issue with maintainer advice. So in 2024, in the age of generative AI-driven development, I, as the developer, am largely playing an assembly role. I'm playing the role of putting all of the ingredients into the cauldron, which is GPT-4. And once it's properly contextualized and properly guided, you can see it can sort of do a lot of the legwork. So let's read. Explanation. Python code now includes the await sleep 0. And I am also not blindly accepting this code. I'm performing an intensive peer review. And you may see me doing this quickly, so you may think that I'm skimming or I'm not giving it serious thought. I hope that you can trust that, like, I'm just kind of fast at peer review. I've done a lot of peer reviews over the years, been developing for over 10 years. And, but I am going to look at what GPT-4 did, and I'm looking for certain things, and I'm applying tests, even if I don't say them out loud. And so I'm testing the result of GPT-4 to mitigate the possibility of hallucination. Okay. And so in this case, a couple of the things that I'm looking for. Number 1, I want to make sure that not only did it add the async IO sleep, I want to make sure that it removed the clock logic that the Pyodide maintainer mentioned won't work. Cool. Minor change to the Pyodide run Python async is used to run the Python code properly. I'll be curious to see what happened there. Be curious. So here's pygame tick clock. So I don't like that. I don't like that. We will try it, but I don't expect it to work. So So I'm going to grab all of the HTML code, paste that into this dist HTML. Now I'm going to grab the Python code, and I'm going to Command F, Command V. And I notice it is identical, which is good. That means that without typo, GPT-4 updated the code similarly in both places, which is what I want to happen. And so now I do feel comfortable placing it here into the main.py. I can also look at the git diff. We kind of already know what it did, right? But basically all it did is it added this sleep, which is not what I was wanting it to do. I was wanting it to refactor the clock logic, and it didn't. So I'm going to give this a test, but I don't expect it to actually work. BrightClick says, can you explain hallucination in terms of software? No. Hallucination is best explained in terms of forecasting and statistical analysis. It's not very well explained in terms of software. Software, thinking along the lines of software and provable cases and structural boundaries is, in my view, really an opposing combative mental model to the probabilistic mental model. So software engineering, if you think about troubleshooting and debugging, you're thinking A causes B. If C occurred, then I can walk backwards to some prior state, like a logical tree. So the software engineering mental model is very much causally directed in a tree-based decision model. This is not how statistical models work. Like, if you think about formal logic, you can think about the critical difference between a logical proof and a proof where the prepositions and conclusion are all probabilistic. They're like critically different mental models. And so the way I explained hallucination is I will use the probabilistic mental model. It's a matter of forecasting. Basically, GPT-4o is predicting the words that it thinks it should say according to its training set and prompting. So it's predicting the words that it thinks that it should say. Now, if you have a way to translate that into software engineering, I'm all ears. But for me, that's actually a puzzling way to even think to explain it. I think it much more naturally fits on the forecasting and statistical mental models. So hallucination is just a side effect of forecasting with error. The model is saying what it thinks it should say, and that has some error when compared to the ground truth of reality. Hope y'all are enjoying the video. Hope you'll smash like, follow the page and whatnot. I've appreciated the comments so far. So what I want to do is I want to try this. Even though I'm expecting to fail, we're going to give it a test. Right. And so to do that, I just want to visit the HTML page in the browser. So here I'm right-clicking. I meant to close others. Oops. Here I'm right-clicking. I'll close others. This is the dist index page. We're going to copy the absolute path and bring it into the browser. This is a local file. Holy. That's kind of working, bro. What in the what? Is this actually going to work? Okay, let's see. Dynamic linking error cannot resolve. Symbol and scripting compute DOM PK code. I think this is the primary key, which is the binding ID. I don't think that's a big problem, although it has the little number 60 there, doesn't it? So maybe that's just the tip of the iceberg. But if the canvas binding ID is getting lost in memory somewhere, we might be able to fix that. That's really exciting. Look, every time I have one of these streams, I haven't gotten the thing to work yet, but we're making incremental progress. This is the first time I've unblocked the rendering loop on the canvas. So this blue and white is coming from Python. The blue and white here, nowhere in the JavaScript. Hold on, am I tripping? Yeah, this is all a unitary canvas. I really hate this spinning loader div, bro. The idea was intended to be that when this loads, this can be eliminated. Loading is a unique class. I want to give that an ID of loading to make it clear that it's unique. So let's go to the template source. Here, loading class, I'll change to loading ID. We'll update the CSS appropriately. Here's loading. Loading. I've changed the loading class to be an ID. Like, update the Python such that when pygame is initialized and the canvas is initially painted, the loading div is removed from the DOM. Chaslide says, so was your way to getting a lot of interviews were through referrals? Yes, referrals have generated a lot of interviews. That's right. I was laid off effective May 20th. I was notified earlier in the month though. And over the course of the month from the time which I started applying, so I started applying before the layoff was effective. I started applying when I got notification, right? So I started applying when I got notified, and a month from that time post, something like, I don't know, May 5th, somewhere around there, I think. A month from there, I applied 100 times and I generated 13 first-round interviews. If you're watching this video far in the future, that may not sound impressive, but in the state of the economy today, that's more than double the norm in the software engineering industry in the economy today. And the reason I was able to have this really positive outcome is because of the power of social networking. I mean, this is not like new advice. I think I may have some new tactics about how to word things during direct outreach and whatnot. I'll give you a couple links there. Had a fantastic podcast with Brooke, and I'm not remembering her last name. Networking tips Q&A. So go to the live tab of the Laterally YouTube channel, and the stream is persisted. I'll also be breaking out shorts from this over the next coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. So there are some of the unique tactics that Laterally provides. Otherwise, you can see them on the blog and the networking scripts. Who do I reach out to? What do I say? Here's the open source networking scripts. Final note would be the Laterally blog. Blog article number 12, at least 10 networking tips. Okay, so there is some marginal innovative value that I'm adding in that regard, but a lot of the advice is relatively old, boring advice. It's just that no one ever does it, which is social network a lot. So when I see other people not getting interviews and they say, well, I should be getting interviews, I'm even social networking. You may be doing the right behaviors at an insufficient volume. And that's actually the story that I see over and over again. The first problem is that many people are not social networking at all. They think that they can learn to code and that a job will magically be dropped into their lap. But a lot of people have smartened up to the fact that they need to social network. Very few people have smartened up to the fact that they need to apply and social network both at high volume. So how do referrals work? Do you just ask someone that works there to talk to that company? You should look at exactly the resources I've just referenced. So at least 12 networking tips. Short-term networking will tell you about some of the things that you can say. Okay. And then also the networking scripts. And then also that video that I mentioned. All of these resources that I've just mentioned should give you an armada of tactical weaponry in terms of the things that you could be communicating at message time. Good questions. Thanks for being here. is really interesting, right? So we can't resolve the symbol. I think I may have lost my train of thought. So we were going to get rid of this div. Here's ChatGPT. Loading. I want to see it use pydom or similar. Pyodide run JavaScript. This is some inception matrix logic. So we have Python in Pyodide in a JavaScript thread. Okay, check this out. We have a JavaScript thread which runs a Pyodide process. And then that Pyodide process includes a Python script. And then that Python script calls Pyodide to run JavaScript to remove the element from the DOM. That is like a Russian doll of code. Are these called Russian dolls? Russian doll nested, like a nested Russian doll. Yeah, this is our video game right now. So there is something called pydom, which directly allows you to access the DOM through Python. That would reduce this Russian doll feature. Can I say this correctly? Matryoshka. I'm going to stick with Russian doll. Oh. Yeah, they're known as Russian dolls. Okay, I got it right. Or Russian tea dolls. Did it do that because you specifically said Python code in the prompt IDK? Maybe. I think it was also avoiding adding a new dependency. So if I were to go get pydom, it would need to add this package. It's drawing influence from its training set. So training set will be things people say across the web. So you can just imagine all of the things people might say on the web that would lead it to a certain outcome. Certainly one thing people would say on the web is like minimize your external dependencies. Okay. If it works, it works. Like I don't necessarily care. It's kind of crazy looking. It's kind of funny, but if it works, it works. So let's update the HTML code over here. This is going to just wreck my ability to use developer tools and linting and things like that. Reason I'm not crazy about it. But for a cute little side project, it's a cute code. This didn't work well. I'm just seeing the ID loading. And I see it not removed from the DOM. I have a simple solution. Pretty effective. I dig it. Okay, so let's roll this back, Command Z. Now there is no Russian doll. Now I will Python build. I'm reviewing my changes here. This looks good so far. I'm staging this. I have no need for this loading rule at all at this point. And I think this is committable. We'll run this test one more time, but pretty much regardless of the outcome, I think we're going to have a committable increment here. Yeah. Look, the canvas is painted. That's progress. The canvas is painted. So we'll even include the main.py here. Okay, so the feet here, canvas paints and rm loading div. Push it to main. So yeah, everything we're seeing is really consistent with what Ryan said on the GitHub issue. I mean, shout out to the maintainers of Pyodide. They know their stuff. Shout out to them. And so what we're seeing here is that Pyodide running async unblocks the thread so that my DOM renders and the canvas initially paints, but my canvas will never tick. My canvas will never tick. So I can't play a game. Like it's unresponsive to key down. Oh, it's not unresponsive. Actually, every key down generates an error. Okay, so I was wondering about this mscripting thing, and it seems exactly related to every time I key down, and I'm not even keying down on the canvas. Like here, I want to add a button. I'm trying to focus on a different element. Maybe it's just snapping my focus to the canvas. Okay, so now I have a foobar. Okay. So now my focus is on the foobar. Do you see that? I've tabbed over to it. Every time I key down with my focus on the foobar, somehow Pyodide and Python are still listening and complaining about this mscripting DOM PK code. So these are fun and interesting facts. Let's also just fix the style of this bad boy. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. There's nothing to be done. He will not be moved. Ah. If we indicate the width through CSS rather than HTML, it looks better. What if I just make it smaller? I guess it is middle aligned, is it? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? I think it is center aligned. So yeah, let me just change the width of it. That seems fair enough. Rebuild. Refresh the page. Cool. So let's try to work on this tick problem now. I'm not sure this will look any good on a phone, will it? Oh, maybe? No, it's overflowing the phone. It's overflowing the phone. Ah, now we've got a genuine float middle now. How do you manage to use ChatGPT so efficiently to incorporate in your project? I think it's just practice. I think it's just a matter of practice. How are people so good at using their cell phones? You know, it becomes like an extra limb, doesn't it? 480 I like even more. 500 seems all right. 540 is nice because it's on the multiples of 60. So let's go 540, which is on the same multiples as the height. Cool. So it's going to look a little better on mobile. Definitely people are going to be checking this thing out on mobile. A lot of the audience is coming from TikTok. What's going on with the HTML page here? What? I guess I don't care. I don't care that much about this. The height is messed up, dude. Auto, no. Width. I don't care. I don't care. Cool. If we get into a shippable state, I'll come back and work on that. I would like that blue banner to go across the top, but I don't care that much. Should I come over here and say width? Yeah, it's constrained by some strange box. I know there's like a CSS normalized thing. Okay, whatever. We can come add Tailwind. It might be that content border box kind of thing. I don't know. So let's work on the clock. So the clock, where's the GitHub issue? Here. Let's remove the loading div logic. I removed the div from the HTML as well. Circling back to the Python code, what did the Pyodide maintainer say about, so you see I'm testing GPT here, is not compatible. Samu, but we can't take whatever GPT says at face value. Sometimes AI is so wrong. Totally agree. So instead of clock tick. Okay, so now the clock tick is actually gone. Now the clock tick is actually gone. Hope you're enjoying the video. If so, smash like and follow the page. I'm still getting the I'm scripting compute PK thing. Okay. This did not put us into a worse state, and it did implement a request to the maintainer. So I think it's worth committing here. And so what does this say? While running, it's worth committing here, and then we want to inspect our game logic to see if our game logic is at root, which is quite possible. Like, what is this thing even doing? Display.flip. I'm not sure what this does. Pygame and Pyodide. We don't have a caption set. Maybe we do. Let's look at this canvas. I don't see it. I'm not sure how the caption setting works. Might just be an in-memory thing, or it might not paint. Thank you for the rose, Samu. So we do see that screen fill working. We see the draw the rect working. This display flip might be working. So it's not clear that players have any actions anyway. So we might need to modify our game logic before we make a false flag that there's a problem with it. Yeah, I'll just have this, like the player can move around the rectangle with WASD. So let me commit where I'm at. So here's style, better, mobile, canvas. Voila. And then here, feet RM clock. Okay. And so now I'm going to Command A, C. I'll come over here to GPT. I don't need to tell it about the code because it's what it just gave me. Now update the code so that instead of WASD, it might be simpler to have a single key down. Now update the code so that on space bar key down, the screen fill changes to a random color. I don't need to import random. That's totally fine. Yes, it is. Sorry, random's a built-in. Random's a built-in. I don't need to install a package to get a random number. We can use the built-in random. Yeah, so I don't have that. Samu says, I've been learning mostly JavaScript and React.js for more than 2 years, and I still feel imposter syndrome. Many companies give you no title change between the entry level and the mid level. And so, first of all, let's just make sure that your title is not something to the effect of junior developer. So are you a mid-level? Basically, you can help solve your imposter syndrome by getting external validation, including promo and certs. And getting into a social community, come join the Discord. I mean, if you want to chat with someone to calibrate yourself to get some just rubber duck, that's something that we're happy to do over there. But basically, once you get to the senior level, it mitigates imposter syndrome because like you're a senior, it's in your title now. If your current company hates you, you can be a senior somewhere else. Like you're objectively a senior. I think it's harder at the early to mid level. And also if like you just became a mid-level developer, you could be struggling with that, right? There's like a higher bar of expected output and behavior at the mid-level, levels of autonomy and whatnot. A lot of that is you just keep doing your day job and the imposter syndrome can fade away. Like if you were recently promoted to mid-level, software engineer 2, or sometimes it's just called software engineer, and you're being expected to do tasks autonomously, and it feels really hard, it feels really weird, you're not getting the support you were used to as a junior. I would just say, like, take it one day at a time. And in 6 months, the problem will probably be better. Like, you'll just be more accustomed to this new situation. Please Discord link. Check out the latterly.io under the community tab, Discord under the community tab. Ryan Dickinson, thanks for being here. Ryan Dickinson says, imposter syndrome never goes away. That's true. I don't think you're ever entirely rid of it, except perhaps for moments. Here's one thing that I also think is true. It's hard to feel imposter syndrome when you are busy feeling successful. This often only happens in moments and flashes. But it's really, really nice. If you ship a project, you go to prod and there's no bugs, like it just works, and then you're getting kudos and accolades. It may only last for a day, a few days, a week, a sprint. But I do think it's possible for time to go by where you're not feeling imposter syndrome. So if you're busy feeling successful, you don't feel imposter syndrome. Also, if you're just busy feeling productive. I played football in high school, so there's this idea of the linemen. The linemen do a lot of hard work and they don't get a lot of credit. And similarly, in software engineering, you can be down in the code doing hard work and not getting accolades and not necessarily feeling successful, maybe just feeling forgotten. But you know you're not an imposter because you keep building stuff and you're busy doing real work. Some people, that's a great place to be. Some people don't like to be in the spotlight, right? They like to actually be in the code. I like that sometimes. So where does the imposter syndrome come from? The imposter syndrome comes from when you feel as though you're not as productive as you should be at your level. You feel as though you're not as productive as you should be at your level. There's just like a bunch of ways to address that. And I don't think that you even really want it to go away, right? Because if it truly goes away, you've mastered your level. Maybe that's fine at the senior level. But for much of your career, you want to be progressing. And to be progressing means that you haven't yet mastered your level. So Ryan Dickinson says imposter syndrome never goes away. I think it can go away for moments and flashes, but I want to agree that for a large portion of your career, it's present and it's not necessarily even bad. You just need to learn how to deal with it. And there's like a lot of tactics for dealing with it. But one of the big ones would be get a social community around you and a positive team, positive culture. If your workplace is toxic, that's going to exacerbate imposter syndrome. And there's a really simple solution there. We live in an industry with a tiny unemployment rate. So particularly once you make it to the senior level, you can just get a new job. There's a lot more to say on that, but I think those are a few tips. At this point, I think we're ready to report the dynamic linking error back over to GitHub, and hopefully they will help. Let me ask ChatGPT. I don't expect a fix. There's two other things we can try. On key down, I see a Chrome Dev Tools console error. I don't know why I capitalized it that way. So let's see if that does anything. The other thing we can do is we can bump the version of Pyodide. Okay, so here we are going to feet alter back color on key down. So we've done these things. The HTML template is the one which talks about Pyodide. V026, now I can go to V1. Suggests there might be an issue handling key events in the environment you're using. Possible workaround, use JavaScript to handle the key and call a Python function. Wow. We're also creative. I really like that. That's actually really creative. So there's a slim chance that they're aware of this bug and they've already fixed it in the minor bump, so we'll check that. Probably shouldn't have cleared the cache. Now it has to reload everything. Okay. All right. So it's still not working. So let's report it. Cool. Okay, so I think that's a good update. Now I'll try what ChatGPT has suggested. I'm intentionally clearing the cache there because I forced a new index file. Oof, that broke it. Don't love that at all. Don't love that at all. All right, so that was a curious idea. We're seeing that this Russian doll approach to when I see a problem in Python, try to escape hatch back to JavaScript world, but it's not the higher level. It's actually a nested lower level of JavaScript. This pattern just doesn't work is one thing that's interesting that we've seen reinforced for multiple different use cases at this point. So that's an interesting learning. As much as we want to know what to do, we should also want to know what not to do. I think we have progress in that regard. Obviously, we painted the canvas. That's big progress. and we've provided some feedback to the open source team. Looking forward to their further feedback, because I'm hopeful, and we'll end on a hopeful note. I'm hopeful that this is a matter of key binding, and that if the key binding goes through, for all I know, the rest of the Python code might be working quite well, and that we just can't propagate the key binding. Thanks for being here, everyone. I hope you'll tune in some more. Check out the Discord. Check out latterly.io. Again, the Aria's Tale thing is just like a fun side project. If you want to learn actual web development the normal way, here's the standard checklist, including a blog. What's more boring and standard than a blog, right? And boring things are good things. Don't confuse boring with bad. You want to learn it the boring way before you go off and do something crazy like what I've been doing. You can also check out ariastale.com. Again, happy to chat more about this in the Discord if you're a late joiner. I talked about this at the top of the stream. This is basically like Dungeons and Dragons with ChatGPT. Is a simple approach to describing this. Thank you so much for being here.